Hey, hey, welcome to the Working Writer Podcast. Hey, so I want to make this one quick, the front matter really brief. This interview on writing contests, of all wonderful things close to my heart, ran over. And you know I don't love it when they go over an hour, so I'm going to cut all the chitter chatter at the beginning off. My guest today is a decorated award winner. He was the recipient of the Iowa Short Fiction Award, which is like the king daddy of all writing contests. He's also received the South Asian Literary Association's Distinguished Achievement Award, which is a lifetime award. He's local to me here in Jax, and we met through the Jax by Jax Writing Festival. And we also participated in the same writing contest, which is one of my favorites, the Screencraft Cinematic Short Story Contest. And so we got a dialogue going a few years ago over that. We talk about it in today's interview. But it was just a really inspiring joy to get to talk to him at length, and I want to share every bit of it with you as I can. We join the conversation right when we're talking about being a working writer and what the crossover looks like for an award winner. So without any more chit chat, no book giveaway this week, I just want to get into it with Sohrab Fracis.
I know so many writers who do copywriting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a really good compliment to
I like it because it helps me keep my sentences concise,
hmm
and it's stable. So when I need like a stable gig,
hmm
and I still keep my freelance clients too, but they come and go.
hmm
And I haven't, like, I've got books underway, but I haven't sold any big projects yet. So this is how I'm doing it, but I want to work my way out of it so badly. So I
Good
don't
for
know,
you.
what does your day job or employment picture look like? How do you put all your pieces together?
No, I mean I ever since not too long after my first book came out um, and won the Iowa Award, I felt like if that wasn't the sign to make writing my priority, what would be?
I know it's Iowa.
Exactly. So what I did was I slowly transitioned out of teaching at the University of North Florida,
Hmm.
and that was helped by an invitation to be visiting writer in residence at Augsburg College in Minneapolis for a short while. Um, and then, slowly I started um, to sort of augment my investment income
Hmm.
to to supplement my royalties and things like that, and that has allowed me to slowly get into a position to focus on my writing.
That's wonderful. That's like literally my dream right there. You just
Keep
I
at it.
I just want to make enough money to keep writing. I don't need a lot,
Yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah.
exactly it. You don't want like luxury, but
Hmm.
you want stability.
Right. Yeah, it's nice to have your bills paid. That's important.
Yeah, that's important. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your book and what it was like, the whole Iowa process. Like how did it all happen and unfold?
Yeah. So that's the first book we're talking about, and I think your topic has to do with writing contests.
Hmm.
Um, so it's a good one to talk about. I, had been writing in individual stories piecemeal um, up until then for several years. I was already teaching. I'd started writing stories even before I entered the MA program at the university, same UNF, and then I continued to find the way to write those individual stories during summers, even though I was teaching the full semesters. I declined the opportunities to teach summer as well because I felt during the semester I wasn't getting a single page of my own writing done, you
Right.
know. And so I said, if not summer, when? So And then I also needed to do a lot of legwork, locale research, setting research, and more, at really distant locations, like the city of Patna in India, where the title story, what turned out to be the title story, is takes place. Um, and that title story was originally for my MA thesis called Bus Ticket to Minto, but eventually um, it got shortened to just a snappier Ticket to Minto.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually it turned out to be the title story of the collection. So at some point, uh, uh, while I was teaching, I started to realize now I had accumulated enough stories to make a collection of it, or almost enough. I felt I still needed uh, uh, a couple more stories, particularly a concluding story, and then also another story that I had in mind. And so I started to actually work towards a book with a book in mind, And then once I had that in place, then I started to go the traditional route, was, try to um, contact agents. Um, and of course, I started to hear from agents that, well, no name author with a story collection rather than a book, I mean, a novel or nonfiction, like a memoir or something,
Mm-hmm.
is just not very easy to place or market. Um, and of course, I tried the smaller presses and independent presses, editors, etc. But again, same situation. Um, and I really remember what stands out in my memory is I was at um, what used to be the Florida First Coast Writers Festival, um, which is now defunct, has been for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think it was out of FSCJ. I'm pretty sure it was. And they had a one on one session that you could sign up for with a guest agent, literary agent from New York. And the guy sat across from me, literally, across a desk or table.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I had the manuscript in my hand, offering it to him. All he had to do was reach out one half a foot, his hand, and
Uh-huh.
take it, but he declined
Ah,
on the basis of my track record so far. I had only published, a handful of the stories in the collection. And even though I'd been getting personal letters from the top places, admiring letters from the New Yorker, Atlantic, etc., they'd wind up saying, "This is lovely, but yeah, try us again,"
mm-hmm.
that kind of thing. And so this guy from New York was like, "No, your track record has to be like 10 out of 10 stories published in the New Yorker, Harper, Atlantic, etc. That's when I'll consider it." Um, um, and he said, "You have to understand one thing about the industry." Uh, and this has never left my mind. He said, "You have to understand it's not a meritocracy."
Oh,
you
interesting.
know, which was a stunning thing to hear, but true.
Mm.
Right? There's so
Mm-hmm.
much that goes on aside from the merit of the work,
Right.
that ends up having it published.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so even though I disliked the concept,
Mm-hmm.
I felt I had to take that into consideration going forward. And then you think about it. what kind of venue actually sets out to be a meritocracy? A contest.
Yes.
A contest
Oh.
basis is which entry is going to be the best.
Mm-hmm.
Supposedly that's the basis. Okay, there's all kinds of stuff
Supposedly,
that,
right.
yes, the stuff that goes on with the contests too.
Right.
Especially when they have a press award tied to the prize, that, and then the press is always thinking about marketability too, at the
Mm-hmm.
same time. And they, whatever if they're doing the judges themselves, the editors themselves are doing the judges, then that's upfront in their minds. Even if they have the guest judge doing the judging the finalists, then after that, sometimes finalists are considered for publication, but then the press is going to think about marketability. So it's not just it's not just merit, but arguably they would have to be more of a meritocracy than the rest of the industry that this guy was talking about, right?
Right.
And so I started to then find, search, look for, and in those days, this I'm talking about, we're going back to the last millennium.
Mm-hmm.
So, so I mean, there wasn't all this submishmash, submittable online, and this and
Yeah,
that.
you had to go to the
Everything was,
library.
yeah, everything was by, yeah. You're supposed to go find the LMP or whatever it was, literary marketplace, and look up things. Or there were annual books called the Novel Writers Marketplace, and a list of agents and this and that, and contests and so on and so forth, right? So, and then the other thing is, in those days, there were far fewer contests than there are today, especially if you talk about
Mm.
university contests. There were only a handful. And so it took me a while to find them. Um, Specifically, the short story collection contest. Um, and and then I started to run into the next hurdle,
Mm-hmm.
which is, if you do have merit, right? If your work does have uh, literary level quality, um, and of course you have to work to get to that point. But assuming you do, then now that it is a pure meritocracy, you're up against so many hundreds of other manuscripts that also have that same merit, that same level of quality, literary quality, in these contests.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and so, even though your book is deserving, so are so many others. Uh, and so I started to like hit, semifinal results at contests. Even I think they'd call them sometimes quarterfinal
Mm-hmm.
results, things like that. So it's like a cut. It's not like in a tennis tournament where quarterfinal means last eight, or
Right.
like semifinal means last four, but it's a cut.
Mm-hmm.
So many go through to this level, and then there's another cut following, and then the final cut gets the finalists, and the finalists would sometimes be 10, top 10, not just two, as in a tournament, but top five sometimes, and things like that. So um, so then I really thought that it was like waiting for lightning to strike.
Oh
you know
boy.
the odds are so bad when you think about it.
Right.
And I started to see, I was literally, I started to see, I was teaching stories by writers who were my competition. I started
Yeah.
to see finalist results. I think it was Alison Lurie. I was teaching her story. I can't remember what the story's name was. Um, Wonderful writing, like top level writing. And I was teaching her story out of what is that annual famous Best American Short Stories.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So her individual stories were breaking into BAS. That's like the top level, right? Anthology, Best American Short Stories. Uh, but I was seeing her name as a, you call it a losing finalist, right? Not the winner
Right.
of the contest. And I was like, Jesus Christ, I am up against the best of the best, and they aren't even winning these contests, you
It's
know?
like the Olympics. You're in the Olympics of
It's like,
writing.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so the good thing about it is that it pushes you to make your product. And ultimately, what we're talking about is, like in any other field,
Mm-hmm.
an end product, right?
Right.
And so it pushes you to make your end product better and better and better to the best of your ability,
Mm-hmm.
right? Maybe not the best it can be, but the best you can make it be,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I was a diligent reviser, reworker, and then I felt like my lightning almost did strike because the collection made the finals cut of a huge contest
Mm-hmm.
of the University of Georgia's or the University of Georgia Press's Flannery O'Connor
Oh
Award.
my God, I didn't know that.
Right.
Yeah, I love her.
Oh yeah. Oh gosh, yeah. Yeah. Wonderful, wonderful writer.
Mm-hmm.
So complex, you know. Um, so, so when Ticket to Minto made the final cut of the Flannery O'Connor, um, and I believe that was a top 10. I won't swear by it. I think that was one of those top 10 final cuts. Um, then I started to understand a little more about what happens at that point. Uh, and I'd already been on seeing what was happening with the semifinal cuts and so on and so forth. At that level, you know, if it goes to a guest, whether it goes to a guest judge or it stays with the editor, and I think in the Flannery case of the Flannery, it was no, it may have been a guest judge. I was about to say it may have been Charles East, who was the series editor of the Flannery O'Connor book series out of UGA Press. But at that point, now you can throw the whole meritocracy thing more or less out the window because one thing you can count on is that all 10 finalists are high quality,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Right.
that at that point is sort of going to become subjective again,
Mm-hmm.
because it's sort of about the judge's proclivity, tastes, tendencies, and what he or she can relate to
Mm-hmm.
most, you know, and so in any case, long story short, I didn't win. I wasn't the winner of that, and I felt like, whoa, there was my lightning.
Right. It's gone now.
It's gone. It missed
Yeah.
me.
The stakes, man. I'm like hanging on, like, oh, come on. And I know the outcome of the story, but it's just gripping.
Yeah. So, but in a way, at least it gives you an idea. It's not like not you just you enter something and then you win and hey presto. No, it doesn't happen that way. Like a lot goes into it, years and years, really.
And
And
aren't these, speaking of time, aren't these like, but from the time you enter and you hear back for each wave, it's months, if not a full year, isn't it? Like it's a long time.
actually, with the book, I I know what you're thinking of, Tia. I think you're thinking of screenwriting contests because there you do hear
Yeah.
about you hear at like the uh, selection for the festival level, and then
Mm-hmm.
you hear the quarterfinal cut, and then you hear the. But I think with most of the contests, you wouldn't even hear until you made. If they had a semifinal cut, then you'd probably hear about
Mm-hmm.
that. But a lot of the time, you wouldn't hear until
Oh,
until
yeah. Most of the ones I enter, you don't
the
hear until you
finals.
see who won it, and it wasn't you.
See?
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's the one thing you could rely on. That's the one thing you could rely on. It wasn't going to be you.
Hmm.
Because
Yep.
what are the odds? What are the odds? Right? So, so where were we? What did you ask
Georgia,
me?
you had just not won Georgia.
Right. Um, yeah. So I thought, forget it. Move on to the next project. By that point, I had started something else, and I was working on that. Um, Coincidentally, or I don't know if it's more like serendipity than coincidence. Uh, UNF assigned me for the first time a full semester workshop, creative writing workshop course
Oh.
to teach,
Hmm.
right? In fiction. Um, and so when I started that course, I was holding up, you know, magazines that I'd been in, to show the students, look at this. This is what can happen. This can be the end result, the satisfying, fulfilling. But I had to admit that I did not have a book to hold up for them to see. Um, so a couple of weeks, literally no more than 10, 12 days into the semester, um, it was in a long, like 3 hour class, evening class.
Hmm.
And so students were chatting with me after class. By the time I got home, I think it was 10 or past at night. Uh, and I see this tells you and any of our listeners when this was happening or how long ago it was happening. I see my answering machine blinking.
Ah. They don't even exist anymore, I don't think.
Who the hell has an answering machine, right? So, so I said, okay, like
Mm.
click and see what the hell. And there's this voice I've never heard. It's a woman, and she says, "My name is Holly Carver, and I'd like to. I'm the director of the University of Iowa Press, and I'd like to uh, speak with Sohrab Fracis, right? Because she didn't know who the hell was on the
Mhm.
other end. And could he please return my call at such and such number?" So it was too late for me to return the call, and I'm thinking, what the hell is this person in Iowa doing calling me? Because get back to that whole thing about my having sort of moved on
Mhm.
from Ticket to Minto, I had no recollection of having entered I was aware of the Iowa
Short fiction.
Short Fiction Award contest.
Are you
Uh,
gonna say you didn't remember entering Iowa?
I had no memory. I had no recollection of having entered the
Wow.
the contest at all. Because, like you were saying, so many months go by, right?
Yeah, right. You move
Uh,
on.
so if I did it, which I must have done,
You must have.
I must have, then it must have been in a fit of, okay, here's my last shot. Okay, let it go. Put it in the mail, which is what you had to do. You had to go to print the whole damn thing out. And I've heard younger writers nowadays really complain about the fact that Iowa has that requirement of getting it in print. Uh, Back then, I didn't think twice. That's what you had to do.
Right.
So I must have, printed out, gone to the PO, put it in the mail, and just clean put it out of my mind. Because that
Wow.
evening, I said to myself, what on earth is she calling me about? Did I enter that thing? I can't have, because I mean, to me that was, I mean, off the because you and I know, but maybe some of our listeners won't know that the University of Iowa MFA program was the first ever in history, right?
Hmm.
Worldwide in
Yeah.
history period, there were no creative writing MFAs before the Iowa program, And that's why for a while it was just simply referred to as the Iowa Workshop, right, of some fame. And to this day, it's considered the premier program in the world. It has never lost that position because of the professors that flock to it to teach those courses. It's a prestigious position for them, and B, the students who regularly win Pulitzers and so on and so forth when they come out of that program, right? So for me, I remember that uh, there was a mental barrier for me to even think about, because I think what played into it was I remember having sent uh, a story or two to the Iowa Review, the magazine.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, which is also one of the top magazines. Not nowadays, I don't hear that much about it, but back then it was one of the top magazines, um, and I had no success. One out of the stories got a personal response. So I think I may have sent them two. One story got a personal response, and I think it may have been the shortest personal response I ever got because all it said was one word: sorry.
Oh, well, I have this whole soapbox about ghosting people who like agents ghosting you and like but I don't know if maybe one word is worse than not hearing. I don't know. How did you feel when you got it?
No, I no. It's always better
Better
to
to
get a
hear.
personal
Yeah.
response, always, because
Yeah.
of the worst of all is the form response, right?
Right, right.
That's something they don't, you don't even know that they've read your story. They just fold the thing and put it. Of course, nowadays it's on
It's
by email,
online. Yeah.
but in those days, yeah, they just have that ready.
I
Send
do
it.
appreciate it acknowledges the receipt. Like, because the worst feeling for me is when I send out a packet that I've just spent so much time on and I don't even know if it got there. It could be in a
Mhm.
slush pile, like in a, spam filter.
Yep.
Just don't know.
No, no, yeah, that's horrible. Yeah, because I mean, and that happens for months, right? So that's when you do, in fact, put it out of your mind and just
Yeah.
plain move. And that's what I've done in this case. So I'm there. I am, and I'm like, maybe I did send it in. Maybe I did enter this thing. What else could she be calling about, right? And then maybe I mean, so why would she be calling? I mean, does it mean that like the Flannery I've made, I'm a finalist or something? But it's too late to call her back. It'll be rude.
Hmm.
So I have to wait till tomorrow. And then, your mind like is so I did not sleep until past I know it was past 4 in the morning. That's the last time I checked it's still 4. I'm still wide awake, wondering, what's going on. And you hope against hope. But at the same time, you have the reality that it's never happened before, and you're probably not gonna. Once again, you're not gonna break the 4-minute mile barrier, right?
Hmm.
So, so in any case, the next day I wake up late. She has called back. Or maybe I'm getting it wrong. I think I may have called back and left a message because
Okay.
I think the second time that she called back, she said, and so now she's missed me twice. So she says, "Sorry to be mysterious, but please could you call me at such and such number?" And so this time I do get her, you know, and she says, I would have told you, but it's one of the best part of my jobs when I get to tell someone in person that this year they are this year's winner of the Iowa Short Fiction Award.
She's gonna
And
leave that on an
that
answering
day,
machine.
since that day, Holly Kawa has been deaf in 1 year because because I busted her eardrum, yelling into the phone. Uh, so that's it happened, and really to this day, that award seal over there is
Right.
the high point of my career. I mean, there's one that sort of comes close or parallels it, is when I was when the international body called the South Asian Literary Association uh, selected and bestowed on me its Distinguished Achievement Award, which is a lifetime
Mm-hmm.
achievement award, and so I'm very proud of that too. So these are the two highlights of, and this one I got to go to the SALA conference in Philly and accept in person. So
Oh, fun.
it was fun. It was satisfying. It was a happy day.
Uh-huh.
Uh, but yeah, so I had, so there was a happy ending.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but I know that it's, so I've never reproduced that. I've been in for my second book, which was turned out to be a novel.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I I think it was a finalist for again a handful of and finalist
Mm-hmm.
for like five or six contests, but it never won, and it was published traditionally because it was good enough to get not only a first agent who loved it and then gave up on it after sending it around, and hearing, admiring things from the large editors, the large presses, and but excuses for not buying it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but actually, a second agent who took it on and sent it around again, had the same experience, and then dropped to the smaller independent presses, and finally we had a very enthusiastic acceptance from a small press in Louisiana called Canute House, or depending on whether you do you say Knopf or do you say Knopf, so it's either.
I hear it both ways.
Yes, exactly. And so there's a touch of humor in Knut Hauser's name, because if you do the silent K thing, then it's not House.
It's cute. Yeah, I wouldn't think that lightning would strike twice. Are there double?
No,
I mean, are there people who've won the Iowa twice? I mean, that
no, you can't win the
you
Iowa
can't.
twice.
Okay.
No, you
Okay.
cannot win the Iowa twice. First of all, the Iowa's only for short story collections.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, it has to be a first collection.
Mm.
So you can't enter, for instance, a second
That's it.
collection.
Yeah.
Right. And now I have accumulated enough to have a second collection. So that's going to
Right.
be hopefully my third book will be again back to a story collection. But I would not be able to enter it in
Mm-hmm.
Iowa. And now it's an interesting thing about the different genre contests. Um, Remember how there was this thing about the agent saying, well, short story collections are unmarketable, novels or memoirs are, more so, et cetera, et cetera. Um, so it's almost like the number of contests available in a particular genre is inversely proportional to the the chances it has at mainstream presses or mainstream publication, which is the good news for the poor poets who
Mm-hmm.
have had the short end of the stick when it comes to book publication in the big presses, right? They're considered the least, they have the smallest niche audience, and so it's the least marketable, and so they have to go to the smaller presses, independent presses, more or less like short story collections. But then short story collections do come out in more than poetry
Mm-hmm.
collections in large presses too. But when it comes to contests, now it's inverted. There are more poetry collection contests than any other variety of contests. So they have more options when it comes to entering a contest.
I was
And
just thinking that when I was shopping contests recently, because I love them. There seemed like a lot of poetry I don't write poetry. I wish I did, but
mhm,
there's a lot. There's a lot of options.
a lot, heck of a lot. If you look in poets and writers, well, of course, it's called poets and writers, I suppose. So, but if you look in at the back of that, or Writer's Digest, or whatever you want,
Hmm.
whichever magazine that you subscribe to, where there's a list of contests and opportunities and so on and so forth, you'll find way. I mean, just in this one, like it's like 5-1 poetry contest. Then you'll
Hmm.
find a certain number of story collection contests. Of course, individual stories, individual poems, um, and then least of all, novel contest, or maybe even least less than that is creative nonfiction contests, CNF.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
Least of all contests.
I haven't found too many of those. I'm still holding out for mine. That's my probably my next plan, I guess. I'm shopping my memoir now.
Oh,
But it's a weird time because it's about religious fundamentalism and domestic violence and these heavy, heavy subjects. It's the end of 2020. The feedback I'm getting is this isn't the right time, even though the themes are very, very relevant to what's happening in the world right now. Because like the group that I was a part of believed in head of household voting, and that was actually a headline in our news this year. So
household voting.
head of household voting was mentioned at the RNC, and I come from a background where I wasn't allowed to vote for 14 years as a wife in my first marriage. So that's
Oh,
what
I see what you're saying. I didn't know exactly what it meant. So it means of the whole family, only the
yes,
head of the household,
can
whatever
vote.
that means, can. What nonsense?
It
That's
is
it
nonsense, but
sounds it sounds very good material to me.
it's good material. I was made sure I was like, if I'm gonna live through this, I was like always aware, like you're gonna do something with this. Make sure document. The writer in me
So
is. I
important.
think it's how I survived it. Um, and so, but shopping it, it's called the American Burqa.
Oh,
Um,
I like that. That's a good title.
thank
That's a
you.
good title.
Thank you. It's just what I hear from agents is this isn't quite what it doesn't quite match what else we're selling, And so I don't know, like I'm on the hinge point with it, and I was thinking maybe I should submit it to some contests, and then I was looking for creative nonfiction contests, and there's not that many.
Have you tried Grey Wolf's Grey
No,
Wolf?
but it's on my list. Yeah,
Good.
yeah.
I mean, that's the best one for, I think, CNF
Mm-hmm.
contests.
All right, I'll bump it up. I'm kind of getting through the end of the year, and then it's like, well, then I'm going to make a decision to step away from submitting. And I did a whole bunch of contests on smaller fiction. I love short story contests because I can um, try different genres and just hone craft basically
Right,
on
right.
a smaller scale. Um,
Mm, mhm.
and screencraft is always my favorite because it's fun and I get feedback. I like getting the feedback from the judges. That's unique, I think. I don't see that in a lot of other contests, but it's worth it to me to get a
Yeah,
quality read, and to because I'm assuming, my stuff's still going to need reworking, and I want to know.
you're getting sort of professional advice, and so it's always good,
Yeah,
and that's part of what I was talking about, making a product better and better and better until hopefully, it's an offer that someone can't refuse.
right, right. So, what do you have things in the works? Are you other than the third book you're working on? Did you submit to any contests this year?
So, for the I may have. I've had like 5 news stories published in nice places
Mm-hmm.
after the novel,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how I know. So I have another 2 or 3 that I've been sending out and getting really nice personal responses from places like Granta and Plowshares. So, you know that I mean, when they're admiring it, it's
Mm-hmm.
good.
Yeah.
Um, um, but I'm trying to think about contests. No, we'd be back to the screenwriting thing.
Mm-hmm.
So you and I were, was it the Screencraft cinematic story
Yes.
contest that we were both among the also rans finalists.
Mm-hmm. I think we were semifinalists together.
Yeah, we were
Yeah,
semifinals together. I did make the finals cut, which was the top 10.
you did.
Um, and that was for a compressed version of my novel, which was Go Home.
Mm-hmm.
That's the second book.
I have that, and in half my books are in storage, and I was looking for it because I wanted to put it right here, but we have a house thing happening, and half of my books are all in a crate in the driveway. I
Yeah,
think your book is in there.
yeah. So the thing about going the traditional um, route and not winning a contest to publish, but being published, is that then it's open to other awards too. And so Go Home had its own uh, sort of lightning strikes moment when Stanford University shortlisted it. They have not an annual, but every 2 years they have a worldwide award called the William Saroyan International Prize. And so Go Home was shortlisted by Stanford for that, which was a very nice moment when,
Wow.
and that they let you know when you're shortlisted and they publicize it,
Hmm.
and so there's then a lot of sort of suspense
Yeah.
when you wait, and of course predictably it went to a large press book that already had the sticker saying Pulitzer Prize finalist on it as the judges are reading it.
Oh, well, that's not leaning on the
That's what I
gene.
call that's what I call unfair advantage.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, way better. I mean, I'm happy. I was about to
Mm.
say better than nothing, but it's more than that, right? It's really nice.
Such
So
an honor and good publicity. And what I really appreciate about it too is that it really shows the long road of books. Like there's a temptation to think I've been spending a little headspace in the right to market environment, and they go through them so rapidly, and it was getting really discouraging thinking like you put all this work into it and then it's just gone. But that isn't what I'm hearing from longer term writers that are like, you have a long life to your book, and it can come up in these things. And like with that one award being every 2 years, there's a lot, I'm sure, for that to pull from. And you've clearly as a writer moved on to other projects by the time it's being honored.
yes,
It's still alive.
and it's still alive. It has legs, as someone put it to me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
So it is good. It's and that's the other upside of for instance, University Press publication, as with the first book. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Ticket to Minto is still alive. I mean, it still has legs. It wasn't. It really took them a while to get with the times, but they not so long ago they put out the Kindle edition, the online edition of it, and that's selling better than the print edition, of course.
Yeah.
And since the University of Iowa Press is not something that is gonna keel over and die like Canute House Press, by the way. I mean, within weeks of the book being out, its director, the press director, was almost going under and focusing on his doctoral duties,
Oh, wow.
and all of that. So it really was a minor. It was invisible,
Mm-hmm.
right? And every single or every second reviewer at least has called it so timely. Think about it's an immigrant novel in times when the sitting president tells uh, American-born congresswomen of color
Mm-hmm.
that they should go back to where they came from, right? That's how timely the book is.
Right.
Uh, and So in any case, I don't want to get started.
No, you should. You just go for it. I wondered though if your work would have like a resurgence because of that, because of the relevant headlines and um, the second life the books can have through Audible and ebook versions and things like that.
Yeah, good luck with that happening with small press books. It's usually the large press books that then get the visibility. Visibility really matters because
Yeah.
that then catches the attention of, for instance, Audible, and then they'll that it's so it snowballs. All of these things happen starting from whatever platform the book is given by
Mm-hmm.
the industry. You know,
So that
and
foundation, it sounds like you're suggesting that foundation is really vital to
it's
what,
very critical in what happens to the book.
yeah. Were you able to like retain rights and everything to your own stuff?
Yeah, my agent was savvy about that, and Canute House was unusually accepting of uh, saying that's okay. We only want the North American uh, rights, uh,
Mm-hmm.
publishing rights, and so we retained the movie rights, for instance.
Oh,
Uh,
good.
yeah,
Are you going to
yeah.
adapt it?
We have adapted it.
Ah,
And then since the time that the compressed novella version made the finals of the National Screencraft cinematic story contest that your um, story called.
oh, which one was that? Was probably, I think it was called I Didn't Send My Regrets.
Oh, I
Yeah.
like that too. I
Yeah.
like your titles. I
Thank
didn't.
you.
so so when I didn't send my regrets, made the semifinals, and then go home. The novella made the final cut. It uh, caught the attention of some movie makers, specifically one who suggested that we collaborate on doing a making a screenplay out of it.
Awesome.
And
And
so
that's
we
through the contest? Like, what was somebody from the contest
no,
that
it
saw
was
it?
not the contest. It was
Oh,
outside
okay.
it was outside the contest.
Outside.
Yeah. Uh, but it's been fun. It's been very satisfying. It's been such a learning experience. Uh,
Mm,
because as you can imagine, I mean, I don't know about you, but I started with zero expertise in the screenwriting side of things, and that's why I had the good sense to know that, hey, listen, I got to this point as a fiction writer, prose writer, um, after long gradual learning curve, climbing that curve year after year after year after year.
hmm.
So if I try to start off at the bottom of that curve by myself as a screenwriter now, uh, that's what I can see stretching ahead of me,
It's
right?
daunting. Yeah.
Whereas this guy, already, I mean, he lives and breathes movies, you
Hmm.
know, and so what he brought to the project were things that I could never, to this day, I could not, you know, write draft
Hmm.
the screenplay with some of the professional nuances that he did, you
That's
know.
fascinating. That's where my imagination is right now. I started my first screenplay a couple weeks ago for a Christmas little. I think it's going to be a novella. I'm writing the novella and the screenplay at the same time
Mhm.
because I've never written a screenplay before, and so I kind of need the assist. And so I write a scene for the screenplay, and then I write a page of the novella, and I work. I've got my board over there, so I'm gesturing over there, but. Um, it's so unfamiliar and exciting and thrilling and daunting and all the things, but it's where I really like want to move into. And this today, because on Fridays I do recording for this, my first interview today was with a screenwriter, and she had just said what it would basically, like you said, like the book process is so enormous, and you spend all this time in books and the scenes and the process and the, the form and all of it, and then it's just really hard to like switch gears and go
Yeah.
into this other world. And she's 1 year into it and getting ready to direct her first. She got signed, like it's working. And so it's like, oh, okay, so it's an
Awesome.
exciting time for scripts too, because we have more um, streaming services, and there's more
Yeah.
outlets for them than just the big studio houses. So um, yeah, it's really interesting that you just said that, because I was like, yeah, the universe is jiving today. It's like you're not all in the same room, but you're all in my head together, and you're you know everything's complementing each other. It's really beautiful.
All in the same
Yeah.
zeitgeist.
So is it what stage is it in? Is it finished? Is it being shopped?
Yeah, it's. I
You
mean, it
look
is a
like you have a secret. That's on your
no,
face. No? No secrets?
not really, not really. It's I mean, it is still. Well, COVID put a damper on it. It was starting to generate some steam,
Hmm.
and I felt it had better prospects until COVID sort of brought a lot of these things to a screeching halt.
Yeah.
But I think I'm hoping it'll start to pick up again.
Hmm.
And so back to the matter of contests. Um, Before COVID, it the script, the then script, that the version back then, and it's a better version now, uh, made the semifinal cut of the Big Apple Film Festival in New York.
Wow.
Yeah,
Are
and
you like just conditioned now that you're gonna advance? Like, do you ever not advance anymore? Because it sounds like you can be assured of a certain place, like you're gonna, like you've you went, like all you do is win, man. No, I know you don't win every time, but like,
no,
I mean, is it
no, look at no, just to give it can actually be more frustrating, I think, when you have those kind of results, but not the the actual
right?
win.
Close but no
Right?
cigar.
Look at my acknowledgments in Go Home, for instance, right? Um, to series editor Michael Griffith for selecting Go Home as a finalist for the Yellow Shoe Fiction series at LSU Press, and Tim Schaffner of Schaffner Press for selecting it as a finalist for the Nicholas Schaffner Award for Music and Literature, and New Rivers Press managing editor Nate Runquist for selecting it as a finalist for the Many Voices Project Prize, and editors Rebecca and Lisa Graziano of Leapfrog Press for shortlisting it in the Leapfrog Fiction Contest, and Black Balloon Publishing for the Horatio Nelson Fiction Prize. So when you're actually going through all this, uh, yeah, it's gratifying and it's validation, but at the same time, it's like there's that American thing about being a bridesmaid, but
Never a bride. Yeah.
never a bride.
Hmm.
Uh, so yeah, I like the fact that you still call it winning, but but it isn't really, is it?
Yeah.
So with any project, it's the end result that matters, and that's why you have to keep the product in mind, and keep making a better product if you can.
Hmm.
And so uh, now with us starting to see hopefully, let's cross our fingers, the end of the light at the end of the COVID tunnel.
Right.
I mean, I think we have a better script than we had, uh, even the one that broke through at the BAF, as it's called, Big Apple Film Festival. So
Maybe you'll get to
hopefully,
go. Like maybe we'll go to places again and we'll go to festivals again and
that's right.
yeah,
Yeah.
could
I mean, things
happen.
have been so like confined now, right? It's claustrophobic, but then we've had Zoom to do Zoom readings on, and things like
Yeah.
that. So that's been fun.
I am
Uh,
so grateful that we live in the time of the internet. I cannot imagine. I'm a recluse. I love to be in my house. I'm an introvert, but I also really love my technology and like connecting with people electronically. And like, I don't know how we would have made it through 2020 without the internet. Like,
that's true.
I just don't think we would have. We would have collectively gone
Can you
crazy.
just imagine? I mean, and people, certainly the aspects about social media that you can, say, well, I wish it wasn't like this, etc., etc., and people do.
Hmm.
But imagine this whole year without social media, right? Of any form, any variety.
Yeah.
I mean, how much more lockdown would we have felt?
Right. Oh, I think there would have been pandemic suicide. And there already has been, rising depression and suicide and all of that too. But human beings need each other. And
Yeah.
that's at least quarantine friendly. And social media for me is very social. I adore Instagram. I'm very engaged on Instagram, multiple
Yeah,
accounts.
I'm
And
not on Instagram because I somehow I had this uh, perception that it's more of a young adult. Uh,
it depends how you use
space.
it. I
Mm,
have my primary account under Tia Lindstrom, which is the name I'm using for the my memoir, is pretty much in the religious trauma therapy healing space, and writers. I have a lot of writers on there. Um, and then I have a different account that's more for fiction and lighter, and that's a lot of readers, bookstagrammers is what they're called. They promote books and they read like crazy, and my art because I paint, so I have an account for that. And the podcast has an account now too. So I'm trying to balance that. And that's all writers. Other people, they're very commercial on there. And so they feel like everybody on Instagram is selling something. I don't follow those accounts. So I don't have that experience there. It's very easy to curate what you want to see. It's less political and less the family and trappings that happen on Facebook, all the you knew me back then and so you still think I'm that way. I have a lot of that because I come from a very conservative, religiously constrictive background,
I
and I
gather.
still have friends and family in that world, and they were Trump supporters and they're very staunch Republicans, and as Chris Cuomo calls them, Retrumplicans. I
Yeah.
love that word. But that's hard for me to be in the general Facebook space because I have to balance all of that. And they are not really cool with how I've evolved and changed over the years as well. So it's, hard for them too. One of the things I like on Facebook though is groups because you can
Yeah.
get in a group with around an interest and
Yeah.
do I mean I think it will redeem it a little bit there. And I don't do really the other platforms because I think people can be I don't do Twitter. It's too chaotic for me.
It
Um
is. It is. I mean, that's the only other one that I do aside from
mhm,
Facebook, and it's like an ocean of. I mean, with no compass to navigate by.
exactly.
Just like craziness, uh, and you literally are a drop in that ocean,
Mhm.
and then there's some big bodies of water, that everyone like flocks to those, and you can really easily develop a complex, if you allow yourself to, if you're insecure enough.
I
uh,
already have that complex, so I don't need to make it worse by overwhelming it with insignificance and this chaos. And you put so much time into those like I do. Like if I write a tweet, I'm actually crafting a sentence and then nobody sees it and
mm,
I'm like, well, what am I here for? I'm
yeah,
just getting completely snowed over, don't even like it.
I hear
So
you,
yeah.
but it might help you to know you have company.
Yeah, well, that's the
someone
thing.
someone someone who had a whole lot more followers
Uh-huh.
uh, tweeted something on the lines of this: there's something chic about an unliked tweet, right?
Oh, that's
And then,
beautiful.
yeah, and then someone uh, big, big author, a big name author, agreed, uh, and said something equally sort of, oh, that she she had just been saying to someone that um, uh, people will discover that uh, there's the best currency in Twitter is having the least number of followers. So she made a point of following people with very few followers all the
Uh-huh.
time, apparently. So I piggybacked on those two tweets to thank the first person and author, also an author, and say, uh, I thanks, because I didn't realize that my tweets are chic all the time.
So good.
and and secondly, thanks to the second author, because by her metric, my problem isn't having too few followers. It's having a little too many.
I love that. I love that. Well, I refuse to like care about follower counts, and I refuse to follow anything like bots or like just follow people for the sake of a number.
Uh-huh.
And so that's just like, I don't know, you just thank you for bringing a little humanity to Twitter, because I that kind of gives me a little bit of hope. It's
No,
like,
no, there's that. So there's another author who I actually know in person. The other two I don't know in person, right? They're
mhm.
purely Twitter fellow followers, or whatever you want to call it. Uh, but there's another author that I know in person who who tweeted that my sole aim in life is, or something like that. Okay, I'm
Mhm.
doing violence by paraphrasing. Is to achieve 695 followers. Right? So
That's so good. Yeah. Well, we are past time, so I'm
yeah,
gonna let that be our last laugh, I guess. But thank you so tremendously, just tremendously, for doing this.
I'm glad you're doing it, and it's a lovely thing. I think for writing community.
So there it is. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I enjoyed having that conversation. It's always inspiring when your writing world gets bigger. And so Rob really gave that to me. So thank you so much. And let's see, programming note. I think you can, if you've been following the podcast, you can tell there was a gap. And that is totally due just to adjusting to the full time gig that I took on. So it's all good, but it is a time adjustment, big time. So obviously, that's a big priority. And I'm just going to try and stay on track as much as I can. I do have big memoir news in the works. Not going to share it yet, but things are really moving in my writing career. So I look forward to that unfolding over the season of this podcast. Thank you so much and have a great week.